Hi guys, good evening. Hi Nikhil. Hi Nikhil. Hi Sachit. Hi Vansh. Hi Bhargavi. Hi Ganesh. Good evening everyone. My audio and video is okay, right? Hi SN. Hi Prashit. My audio and video is okay? Yes? Awesome. Awesome. From today we are going to create many different projects. Our first week would be dedicated to shorter projects. Then we will steadily move to creating bigger projects. Okay? Today we are going to cover our first small project, which is a very simple project, which is called a URL shortener. Okay, the concept is very simple. Basically, you have to paste a website over here. Okay, a URL over here. Click on this button. The backend will give you a shortened URL. See, okay, slash some ID. The backend will give you a shortened URL. Whenever you click on this, it should redirect you to the actual website. Okay, understood the requirement? You you paste a website over here, click on the button, it gives you a shortened URL. This shortened URL redirects you. Whenever you use the shortened URL, it should redirect you to the actual website. Okay, now let's create our project. This is day 6. Okay, till the time it is loading, let's understand what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, first we need to insert some packages. Where are the packages? You guys can see this or should I zoom? Is this good enough? Is this good enough? Yes? Okay, awesome. First we need our Express. Let's install the Express with which we are going to create our APIs. Okay, then we need a package called Nanoite. It basically creates your ID. Okay, for example, it converts this URL into a short ID, something like this. Okay, this is done using a package called Nanoite. Cool. Let's just install it very quick. Express is installed. Nanoite. Then we need Sequelize. I'm not using VS Code because this Replit is free for use. Okay, I want you guys to use Replit so that you can share the code with whoever requires it with a running example. Okay, with your interviewer or whoever, Replit is much better place to share the code. Okay, that is why I'm using Replit for this. Okay, you can do the same thing in VS Code also. We need SQLite 3 as well. Okay. We understand why we need Express. We need Express to create our app APIs. We understand why we need Nanoid. We need Nanoid to create the URL into a specific ID, which we are going to save in the database. Okay. For database, we need SQLize and SQLite 3. Okay. Rest of the packages do not care about it. In index.js, let's start by creating our server. How do I create a server? We create a server with constant express equal to require express, and then we have to call the function. Okay, express, we call that function. Okay, this initiates the uh, express server for us. Now we need to listen to a port. Let's listen to a port. Okay, let us say the port is 1337. Okay, we have our port over here and we have our callback over here. Let's simply console.log and say the app is running on port, comma, port. Okay. Yes, this can be any 4-digit number, any 4-digit numeric number. It can be. Okay, 3000, 3001 is the most common one. 3000 for front end, 3001 for back end is the most common ports used. Okay, now we need to add some middlewares. What are middlewares? Who can tell me what are middlewares? Who can tell me what are middlewares? We already covered middlewares in our previous classes, right? Can anyone of you tell me what are middlewares? What are we doing over here? Clean up for responses. No. Functions have access to request objects. No. More for the request. No. Middlewares are basically functions that gets called before making the API call. Yes, yes. Yogesh is right. Is there some spelling mistake? URL encoded. Okay. Middlewares are basically functions which gets called before calling any of the API calls. Okay. Before each and every API call that you're going to create, these middlewares will be called. These are basically functions which gets called before any of the API calls are made. Okay. Express.json, this middleware, what does it do? It basically accepts application slash JSON, right? For Express server, Express static, what does this do? We basically put our HTMLs in public folder and make it accessible using this line. And URL encoded basically means that you can accept request.body. Okay, let's create our public folder, right? And let's create index.html over here. Okay, this index.html would be very simple. Let me just copy it from somewhere. What does this have? In the body, we basically have form which have an input and a button. Okay. We have a form with a title, input, and a button. Clicking on this button will do the form submit. Okay. In this submit, what I've written is whenever we have submit, we get whatever is there in the input. We make an API call to slash URL API. We make a post call with application JSON, and inside that, in the body, we send long URL. Okay, we send long URL in the body. If everything goes as expected, if there is an error, we throw an error. Otherwise, we return response.json and we console log. Okay, we put the short URL in the div below, which is clickable, right? We basically, in the href, we put the short URL inside this. Okay, simple enough. Did you guys understand the front end part? We have a form submitting on which we make a post API call. Inside body, we have long URL, which is taking the input value and sending it to the backend. Okay. Once the short URL is coming back, we make an A tag with the short URL as href. Okay. Who is the size pro? Okay. I did not understood your requirement, size pro. But anyways, your express.url encoded basically means that in post call you are able to accept body, right? You are sending the values inside a body, right? From here, this body you can accept it with URL encoded. Okay, we have created we have created our basic server. Now let's add some URLs. Let's add some URLs. Okay, first we have the where are we making the API call? We are making the API call to slash URL API, right? We are making the API call to slash URL API. On this, we have to make a function call. Okay, and whenever we have to get the we have to show the HTML also, right? So in this, whenever there is a slash, that is we want to show the HTML. And if there is a call to URL API, then that means we have to make some backend calls. Okay. Now let's create our routes. We will have two routes. One is say home.js. Okay. Another one would be, let's say, url.js. Whatever we would be exporting from those, we will be importing here. So constant, let's call it short URL equal to require it from routes slash URL. Okay. And for the slash routes, that is the home routes, let's call it home routes and require it from your route slash home. Okay. This short URL will go over here and this home routes will go over here. Now, in the home routes, we have to basically put this HTML, right? So let's create our home routes. Okay, I am explaining too fast. Acha, let me just complete the home route. Then uh, we'll explain again, okay? I thought we have already covered this in sign up, sign in, so I'm going a little fast over here. Okay, so we require Express, then we need the router, okay, which is coming from express dot router, okay. In this, let us create a get call to slash and then an async function which will have request and a response, okay. Is there something you did not understood? Okay. Um, we have the HTML path. Okay. The HTML path will come from public, right? Inside public, whenever a person is coming to slash, we need to send this file. Okay, we need to send this file. To get to this file, there is a default package that comes with Node.js, which is called path. Okay, I will revise everything once. Let me just complete the slash URL. Okay, here we will write path.join, and wherever we are right now, it is it is referred to as dir name. Okay, this dir name basically, if I console log over here, this dir name is a what do you say, is a keyword. Okay, this basically is a variable which you can use to access the current directory. Okay, this is the current directory, this whole system. Inside that, we need to go inside public, and we need index.html inside it. This basically gives you the path of the HTML. Okay, and if I write response dot send file, and inside that if I put the HTML path, I can send the index.html file back to the client. Okay, now let's revise what all we did, okay, in a very slow manner in index.html. First of all, what all do we need to do? First of all, what all do we need to do? Let's call it readme.md. Let's write down these steps. First, we need to create a server, create a server. How do we create a server? How do we create a server? We create a server using Express. Okay, we require Express and then call the Express function. Okay, what do we do next? We listen to a port. Cool. This is how we create servers. Now we need to accept some parameters. How do we do that? We do that by adding middlewares, right? How do we add middlewares? We add middlewares using app.use. What are middlewares? Middlewares are basically functions which gets called before each and every API call that you make. Okay, these are all the middlewares that we have used. This express.json basically accepts application JSON. Okay, so whatever front end is sending as JSON, this function is required to understand that. Okay, then we need a HTML. We need this HTML to be shown, right? So we say that okay, whatever is there in the public folder, those are public. Anybody can access those. Okay. To write that, we require this express.static public. That means that public folder is open for all. Okay. Then we are sending the data, the long URL inside body, correct? So we are sending that inside body. To understand body, to understand post request, we require express.url encoded. Okay. So we added middlewares. What is the third thing that we need to write? We need to on slash URL, okay, or on the website URL. If somebody is there on the website, we need to show this HTML page, right? So on slash, that is on the home page, we need to show HTML page, right? How do we do that? How do we do that? We first we first write a middleware using app.use. Whatever starts with slash should call the function written afterwards. Okay, so whatever starts with slash, whatever URL starts with slash, this function should be called. Okay, and inside this function, we have to return the HTML file. This is what we have done till now. We have created a server. We have implemented some middlewares, which is common for all the projects. Then we have created slash, which is returning an HTML file. Okay, let us go back to index.js. To create a server, we use constant express, require express, and then express function. Then we listen to a port. Okay, we use these middlewares. These would be common for all the projects, right? And then we have written the slash URL. Okay, inside this is a function which we have created in a different file inside routes, which is this one. We are exporting a function from over here. We are importing it over here and using it in your app.use. So whatever URLs start with slash will call this function. Inside this function, what is written? Inside this function, we have a get call, okay, which has this slash. So whatever API calls we make on slash, this function will get called, which has two things: request and response. There is nothing coming in request, so we will basically use response. Inside this, we need to send this index.html, right? So we have to tell Node that okay, send this file from this path. To create the path, we have a package called path, okay, and we require path.json. This directory name basically is the whole directory, the whole thing. Inside this directory, we have public folder. Inside the public folder, we have index.html. Okay, this path.join gives you the path to index.html. Okay, and we are sending that file back to the client. Now let me pause. Any doubts? Syspro, is there any doubt with anybody? This dir name is a what do you call it? Keyword. Okay, this is a keyword. This is given by Node as a keyword. This is not stored anywhere. If you don't define middleware, for then the index defined in the folder or a static function is served, right? If I don't define the middleware, basically this folder will never get public. Okay, nobody will be able to access this folder until and unless I specifically mention it to. How you got home function? How you got home function? Okay, so basically we can write different type of URLs, right? On slash, I can have four types of basic URLs, basic API calls: get, post, put, delete, right? So Express gives us something called router, which is required like this: express.router. If if you write router dot post over here as slash and a function, so whatever, if somebody is making a post call, it will go over here. If somebody is making a delete call, it will go over here in this function. See, the URL is same, but because of this router is basically a class, right? Or an object. So I'm writing the keys over here: get, post, put, delete, and I'm sending this object back to index.js, right? I'm getting it over here, I'm requiring it over here, and using it over here. So whatever URLs start with slash should call this object or function. Okay, and inside this, what I have written is, whenever there is a get call to slash, call this function. We do not need a sync over here. Call this function. If somebody is making a post call to slash, call this function. If somebody is making a delete call to slash, call this function. And we are exporting the router over here. We have already covered this in sign in and sign up, right? I'm not sure why you are not getting all this. Forget about index.html. We are not concerned about index.html. That index.html basically is this website. It has a title, it has a input, it has a button. Clicking on this button will shorten this URL, put it inside an A tag, and whenever you click on this A tag, you will go to the actual website. That's it. That is the index.html for you. Okay, how we are sending the index.html is over here. Okay, let me just remove this and put it over here with HTML path. This dir name is something that Node.js provides, which gives you the directory name. Otherwise, you will have to write C drive, then your folder name, then your folder name, then your folder name, etc., etc., etc. And you cannot ship this code. Why? Because that folder, that path, for example, if I have Yogesh is creating some code, okay, then for getting to this index.html, he will have to write C drive slash Yogesh slash day6, right? Slash public slash index.html. If he gives me the same code, the path will be wrong for me. For me, it will be C drive slash Rachit slash day6 slash public, etc. Right? The path is changing. To solve that, we have something called dir name. Dir name, what it does is uh, it gives you a variable which stores the path to this folder. Okay, your project. After that, you can append public and index.html using path.join. This will give you the uh, whole path to the HTML file. Okay. Forget about empty. See, do not get confused about some these unnecessary things. This Readme.md I have just created to tell you the each and every step that I'm going to create, that I am doing. Okay, this forget about it. Delete this. If this is confusing you, delete this. Okay. In your url.js also, we will have the same thing, router, express router. Okay, and we will do module.exports equal to router. Cool. This is the starting point for any API call. I think most of you have not cleared your backlogs, have not done the sign in side up. That is why these many issues are coming up. See, the name of the file does not matter. All the home based URLs, slash is basically home. Okay, so slash based URLs, all those are written inside this. Okay, slash URL based URLs, slash URL API based URL is written inside this. The name of the file could be anything, does not matter. Okay, but this folder structure matters. All the public files, all the public assets should be in public folder. All the routes should be in routes folder. Okay. All the configurations should be in config folder. All the models should be in models folder, etc. Okay. Chalo. Before making the uh, routes, or let's just make the routes. What we want to do over here, we want to make a post API call. Yes, which will accept the long URL, right? In this router dot post, if something is coming in slash, see this slash does not mean the whole website slash. This slash basically is appended after your URL API. Okay. Also, the this URL API should be above this slash. Otherwise, what it will do is this is also starting from slash. This is also starting from slash, right? It will, if this is down, then it will always go to this function. It will never come to this function. Okay. So remember this. For every URL, if it matches from URL API, it should go to this function. Otherwise, all the routes should go to home routes. Okay. All the slash route should go to home routes. So whenever there is a hit on slash URL API, this function gets called. In this function, I am writing a post request. This post request will have two things, request and response. Okay. In the request, first of all, let me have a try catch. Okay. Inside this, we will have a long URL coming from request.body, right? Long URL coming from request.body, correct or not? See, inside this, in the body, I'm sending a variable name long URL. So I'm accepting that over here. In request.body, I'm getting long URL. Okay. Now, I want to convert this into a short URL. Okay. I want to convert this into a short URL. Post is not defined. Where post is not defined? Day 6 index.js. Where did I put post? Oh, sorry. It should be port. Okay. Awesome. So after this, in url.js, what I want to do is I want to convert this long URL. I want to convert this long URL into an ID. Okay. And I want to put that ID after your website domain. My website domain looks too big, but anyways, okay. Whenever it comes to this ID, whenever a person comes to this ID, or let's make it even shorter, URL API slash ID. Whenever a person makes a get call to this ID, right, we have to redirect it to the actual URL, the long URL, right? This is what we need to do. Are you guys following or not? Is there anybody who is not following what we are trying to do over here? Is there anybody who is not following? Meridian, are you following? Syspro, are you following? Is there anybody who is not following right now? This is a good practice. Whenever you have an async, whenever you're using async await, always wrap your code into try and catch. So that if any error comes, your code is not broken, it goes to catch. Okay, everybody is following now? Awesome. So what we want to do is whenever we make a post call to slash URL API, we get a long URL. We want to convert this to an ID. Okay, an ID of 4 digits. So let's have a short URL, short ID. Let me write it after this. Constant short ID equal to nanoid Okay, let's import Nenoid over here. Right, we have Nenoid. It sends it like this. Okay, we have our Nenoid, and we want the ID to be of length 4. Okay, so we have short ID, we have long URL. Cool. Now we want to store it in the database. Let's delete this. The next step would be store it in db. What is happening? Store in db. Okay, with the long URL and its corresponding short ID. Are you guys following? We want to make a connection between the long URL and the short ID, right? So we have to store it in the DB with long URL and short ID, right? Are you guys following or not? Yes? Okay. So first we need DB, right? For DB, we need to create connection between the DB inside our config folder. Inside config, we should have db.js. In db.js, just like we create an Express server, we connect it with this. Let me just copy paste the code to make it quick. Anyways, constant QUELIZE sequelize equal to require from sequelize. Okay, now let's have a variable called create db equal to new sequelize. We create an object of this class. Okay, now it requires options. The first thing that it requires is the database name. Let's call it testdb. Okay, now it requires username and password. Let's call user as user and password as pass. Never you have always have a good password, otherwise hackers will hack you. And then it needs a dialect to whatever database we are trying to connect. The dialect is SQLite. Okay, we stored SQLite over here, right? And where would be the SQLite code reside? The SQLite code will reside between config, right, slash db dot SQLite. Okay, just beside this way. In this way, we have created a new object of this database. Let's export this. Okay. Do anybody of you have any questions in this? We have just created a new object of sequelize. This is the database name, this is the user, this is the password, which database to connect to, and where will the database file be. Okay, all good over here. Then what we need to do is we need to create our models. We need to create our models or the tables. Okay. Inside this, let's call it url model.js. Okay. We get two things. One is model and one is data types from your sequelize itself. Queelize. Okay. We get two things. One is model, one is data types from sequelize itself. Okay, then we need the create DB that we have created just now. Let us put it in sequelize variable equal to require the thing that we have created just now inside config slash db. Okay, now we need to create a class. We need to create a class named URL. Class name always starts with a capital letter and give it all the property of this model. Okay. Now inside url.init, we need to call this function and give the column types. Okay. The first column is long URL. We need a long URL, right? The type of long URL would be data types dot string. Okay. And we should not allow null to be inside this. Okay, so we do allow null as false. Now the corresponding short URL. We need short URL inside this. Same thing. That will also be string, and we will not allow empty short URLs to be inserted inside DB. Okay, this accepts one other parameter. First, it requires the create DB that you have created and the model name. Let's call it URL only. Okay, and let's export this URL class so as to be used at other places. Module.exports equal to URL. Okay, now we have connected to our DB with this way. We have created a new instance of Sequelize with database user password, data type, etc. We have created our table, right? With long URL and short URL and its corresponding short URL. Now I need to use this inside our routes. First, let me just import it. We will require two things. One is create db over here from require dot slash config slash db.js, and we require a URL model. So let's require URL equal to require dot slash from model slash URL models URL model. Okay. Now let's start our this thing SQLite. To do that, we will require create db dot sync. Okay. We call this function. When this is done, we will say console.log db is running. Okay, and inside this, now we need to save the short URL and long URL, right? So let's create the short URL equal to await. Let's save it in the database url.create. Okay, the long URL is the long URL that is coming from request.body. Okay, and short URL or the short ID. Let's save the short ID, just the short ID that this nanoid has created corresponding to this long URL. Okay, if everything goes as planned, if everything goes as planned, we will return response dot status 200 dot send this short URL. Okay. Or another way of writing this is response.json. If we are accepting JSON, we should also send JSON. Okay. Response.send is a very general thing, right? We want to be a very precise thing. So we use response.json. Okay. We say that the status is okay and the short URL that is created is first of all this URL. Okay. First of all, this URL, whatever we have right now, it's better to store it somewhere so that we can change it afterwards. So let's give it a base URL. Okay. And after this, we require slash URL API. Slash URL API. Okay. So this base URL slash the short ID would be your shortened URL. Okay. Let's restart the server and check if it is working fine. What happened? Did I misspell it? Let me just check. Okay. If this is not working, let's try with import. Let's comment this and say import nanoid from nanoid. Let's try to run this now. See if there are errors. Cannot use import statement outside a module. Okay. What is the Node.js version we are using? Hmm. Maybe some problem with the Node.js itself. Okay, let's try it one more time. We currently do not support the syntax. Okay. Okay. Anyways, let's ignore the void and create some random number, right? Let's call it math dot random. Okay. This is an example. Okay. You should use Android only, but there is some problem. I do not want to stop the class. What is happening? Cannot read properties of undefined. url.js line number 7. What is the problem at line number 7? Okay. Uh, Sorry for this, guys. I'm not sure what is the problem over here. Line number 7 again. Do you guys see if there is any problem? Do you guys see a problem? Is there a problem over here? It's saying cannot read properties of undefined. Reading define. Hmm. What is the problem? Sorry for this, guys. I'm not sure what the problem is. Either I've misspelled SQL as a spelling. .js is already here. It may be a problem with Replit itself. I think there is a problem with Replit itself. I don't see an error in the code. No, no, that is not required. You do not need a .js in this. Inside config db. Okay, console.log. Let's comment this out and see what is happening. Okay, let's comment this out as well. Refreshing the page, the data may get lost. Till here everything is okay, right? It may be a problem with Replit itself. Replit does that sometimes. Okay, till here everything is okay. Now let's have create db and have create db.sync. Let's see if this is causing issues. Replit does that sometimes. Create db.sync is not a function. Okay. Dot config /db. Okay. Module.exports. Always remember it is module.exports, not export. I think this should work now. Yes, this worked. This S was the problem. Sorry for that. Okay, now let's uncomment this. Uncomment this. Stop it and run. Okay, this is running right now. Let's open inspect element. Zoom this for you guys. Let's open network. Zoom this also. Let's paste a URL. Create a shortened link. Yes. So see, we made a post call, okay, to this URL to /URL API. What happened was whenever we made an API call to /URL API, it goes over here, okay, with the long URL. See, we are sending the long URL over here. That long URL with math.random, some random numbers gets generated. It stores it with long URL, okay, and gives you back the URL. Okay, see, uh, /URL API /any number. Okay, it is better to use an avoid, but this also works. This ID number we have generated. Okay, in the preview we get short URL as this and status as OK. Let us revise a very quick revision of what we have done so far. In index.js, we created our express server using these two lines, express equal to require express and then express function called. We then listened to a port, okay, using app.listen. We then created some middlewares, used some middlewares with app.use to accept application.json to make public folder public to use request.body. Okay, then we have created our different URLs. So whatever is starting with slash URL API goes to this function. Whatever is starting from slash goes to this function. Okay. In this function, this is over here route slash home. In this, what we did is we took the HTML path. Okay. We took the index.html path using path.join and sent back the file. Okay. This thing should have come. dir name. Let me show you guys the dir name. Okay, it did not come. Let me refresh it. Anyways, anyways. Okay, so we return back the index.html file. Okay, now in url.js, what we did over here, whatever API starts with URL slash URL API goes to this function. In this function, what we did was we made a post call whenever we get a hit on slash URL API. Whenever we get a hit on slash URL API, in request.body, we send long URL. Okay, that long URL gets saved with a short ID in the database, and a short URL gets created and sent back to your frontend. Okay, are there any doubts still here? Are there any doubts still here? We have to paste a URL over here, click on shorten, and it will give us the shorten URL. Basically an ID after this whole URL. I hope there are no doubts still here. Okay, awesome. Now we need to make this URL that we have created, we need to make this working, right? Right now, if we go to this URL, we get an error that there is no get API created for this, right? Now we need to make this URL working. To make it working, we had a post call, right? We need to create a get call now. So get, okay, since that is dynamic, we write something like this. Okay, so whatever comes after slash, if there is a colon, that means this is a variable. Okay, this is a variable. If I use short, that means it can be anything after colon slash. Okay, to make a dynamic URL, we use something like this. After slash, anything can come. Any variable can come. Because basically this last part is a variable for us, right? We do not know what would be generated. So this is a variable for us. Again, request and response. Okay, this function will be called whenever we go to this URL. We make a get URL API call to this URL. Okay. Now what we do is we get the long URL from the database, right? We get the long URL from the database from this short ID. Let's say the short ID equal to, we want this value, this short value. We get it using request dot param dot the variable name short. Okay. If I write some other variable name, say var over here, then I will write var over here. Okay. Request dot param dot short. This is a variable whose value will be inside short ID. We got the short ID from your this thing URL itself. Now what we want to do is we want to find the long URL from the database. Okay, let's wrap it inside try catch. Always remember to have try catch whenever you have an async function. Okay, response dot status with code 500 and send this error back. Okay, and have a return statement with this response dot status. Now what we want to do is we want to get the long URL from the database. Correct? How will we do that? Let URL equal to await URL dot find one. Okay, where the short URL, it should be short ID, but I put it as short URL, is basically this short ID. Okay, if we found that URL, we want to send the long URL back. Okay, we want to send the long URL back. Suppose if there is no URL, for example, I made some changes into this. Okay, and this is not saved in the database. Then what will I do? If there is no URL found, okay, if there is no URL, I will send response dot status as 404 that is not found and send uh, invalid short URL. Okay, if everything goes as planned, we should return from over here as well. If everything goes as planned, we should return response dot redirect. Okay, this basically redirects to the URL that you're going to write over here. Long URL. Okay, now if I go back over here and I hit enter, do I have to stop again? Chalo, stopping again. And let's say I put google.com over here. I hit shorten. Let's refresh this. Uh, let's say I put a Google Doc sheet and I go to this URL now. It will redirect me to that page. Okay, all good. I think there is some error over here. Think so. Okay, no URL found. Insert into value long ID, long short URL. What did we save in the short ID? Short ID we saved in the short URL, right? Okay, if that short ID is same, let's try to use nanoid again. Let's stop this. Okay, nanoid. 4 digits. Let's try to run it again. Okay. Something is happening with Android. Anyways, this should be params. Okay, now if I go to this invalid short URL. Okay, our code is basically working, right? Let us give it one more try. Let's say devsnest.in. Let's go to the Devsnest website. Let's go to this URL itself. Shorten it, go to this URL. This should basically redirect us to, yes, it redirected. Okay, let us revise what we did over here. Whenever we make a post call, we get the long URL in request.body. We shorten it with, we create some random IDs for that. Okay, using math.random or nanoid. We save it in the database using url.create with long ID and its corresponding short ID. Long URL and short ID. We send back the short URL. Okay, and whenever a user goes to that short URL, basically that is a dynamic thing, so we will use colons and then the variable name. Okay, how do we get it? Request.params.short. Okay, this will have the variable value. So I get short ID from over here, and then I do find one where the short URL is the short ID. If the URL is not found, we send invalid short URL. If it is found, then we redirect to the long URL. Okay. Any doubts? I hope after all the confusion, also you understood what is happening. Let me revise one more time for you guys. In index.js, we first created our Express server using these two lines. Express equal to require express and then app equal to express function. Okay, then we listen to the port, app.listen port. We used our middlewares to use application.json. We use express.json to make public folder public. We use express static to use request.body. We use URL encode. Then we created two URLs, URL API and slash. On slash, we have to return this HTML file. So we make this route. This route is over here in home.js. Whenever we get a slash API call, get call, we return back the HTML file with which the path we get from path.join, the dir name, public, and index.html. Similarly, you can use any HTML file over here and send file using response.send file. Then we need it to create the URL shortener. With the post call, we get a long URL. Okay, we create a short ID using nanoid or math.random. We save that using url.create. Okay, the long URL and the short ID corresponding to it. And we send back a short URL. Okay, with a base URL and the short ID after that. Okay, now we needed database to we create config db.js, new sequelize the database name, user password, whatever database we are using, and where is the file, the database file that it needs. Okay, so we have this config, then we needed to write models. We created a model called URL. We get model and data types from Sequelize, right? And we need create DB from whatever from config. We created a class called URL, extended it to model so that all the model properties goes to URL, and inside that we call the init method. In the init, we created our table structure, the long URL of data type string. We do not allow null to be present. With short URL, we have a string with we do not allow null. Okay, then it requires the create DB and the table name or the model name, right? After that, in the url.js, we created a get call where this thing is dynamic. We get it from params.short. We get the short ID. Okay, we find it in the database where the short URL is the short ID, and we redirect it to the corresponding long URL. Okay, I hope there are no doubts even after so much confusion. No doubts, right? Okay, so that is it for today's class. I will meet you in the Mahasabha VC on our Discord channel. I hope today's class was something that you learned, something new that you learned, right? We will be creating projects every day from now on. Some small projects, 4 to 5 small projects. Then we will move to big projects. Okay. Meet you in the Mahasabha VC. Peace.